This week on RSBANDB Update, the Ninja Team is back, this time with a skill strike on Dungeoneering, Herblore, and Farming. Irons can Dungeoneer together, extreme potions are tradable, and Tool Leprechauns note produce. We also break down where you should use the new Protean items. This is RSBANDB Update, episode 883, recorded Thursday, May 19th, 2022. Extreme Shakes. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another episode of RSBANDB Update. Welcome back, Tanis.
Thank you, Shane.
Also joining us this week is David, one of our resident PVM experts, claim to fame, having to ice his hands on the release day week of Virago. Welcome back.
Hi.
He's here. We're going to talk about some of the Herblore changes in relation to the Ninja Strike this week. The fun little surprising Ninja Strike heading into Double XP Live, the Skilling Strike, as it's called, and alongside that, of course, a bunch of other patch notes, another update on the RuneScape Kingdoms board game, and then, of course, the weekly micro lesson up to this point on defensives and tanking this week. So that's what you can expect from this week's episode of RSBANDB Update. Hopefully you guys enjoyed our Behind the Crown episode with Mod Shrike last week. That was definitely a fun one to record, and glad we were able to get that out. But if you want to follow along, you can find our full show notes at update.rsbnb.com. You can find me in-game at Shane12088, and Tanis is in-game at Tanis79, and David is on two accounts, and I'll let him plug his account name, whichever one he wants to, if you want to do that or not.
Yeah, Icalgo is what I normally play on, Ikalgo, the squid from Hunter x Hunter.
Okay, and that's your Iron Man, the main account these days. Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, I guess with that we began with the new Protean items, which obviously Iron Man can't access, but with this week's Double XP Time to Train Treasure Hunter promo, there's 3 new Protean items, or Protean items. I'm just going to call them Protean items because I've called them that since the very beginning. Items for cooking, rune crafting, and Herblore. For rune crafting, you have the Protean runes, the XP skills upon the altar that you visit, and the Protean Shake is for Herblore, which can be used anywhere you mix a potion to earn Herblore XP. And then, finally, the name that everybody loves the most, the Proteans, which will give you cooking XP. So, how do you guys feel about these, Tanis? Any thoughts?
I don't feel any different than any of the other Proteans we have.
Yeah. And I feel like these ones were kind of overdue to arrive, and David and I were actually running the numbers earlier in the week, and what's the case where you'd want to use the Herblore one? Let's just start with that one, since that one seems the most absurd. Because there really isn't one unless
Is that a question for me?
Yeah, that is one for you, because
I don't know why you would ever use them. I guess if you don't have any startup money to buy potion ingredients, but and also it's just very AFK. Herblore's, because of how fast it's trained, it's not a click intensive skill, but it's not an AFK skill because you have to be refreshing your inventory pretty frequently. So it definitely lets you AFK. The XP rates get very high, about as high as making overloads, but do not get as high as making things like vulnerability bombs.
Yeah.
So they're not the best XP in the game by any means.
No.
But they're pretty AFK.
And what we came up with, or what you came up with for this, was that, how much money did you say? Basically, just one shop run would be enough to get you started if you're training Herblore from level 1, rinse, repeat, and sell the potions, and you'd be able to get all the way to 92, or the overload level, with that on a double XP, if you just rinse and repeat and sell, based on the prices of training Herblore in this day and age, believe it or not.
Yeah. I think if you do a few shop runs, buy some initial potions, get yourself up to something like anti-fire potions.
Sure.
Anti-fire potions can be sold for a profit, weirdly, and that's something that changes, obviously, so you can't take that as a fact. You have to be checking the prices and making sure not to spam plus 5% when you buy ingredients, spam minus 5% when you sell. But if you sell patiently, you do that to the classic Ceradomin brews. You lose some amount of money. But for probably 20 to 25 mil, you can get 96 Herblore these days. It's faster if you're willing to spend money and just do whatever the highest level potion possible is. But in a single double XP weekend with 25 to 30 mil, as long as you're patient, which you're able to be patient because of the way double XP live works, within a double XP live, you should be able to get to 96 Herblore. And shop runs are great. You can pretty easily make 7 to 8 mil in a shop run. So if you do that a couple times, you'll have enough money for overloads.
And I just want to point out again how weird this is when, we look back to when I was training Herblore before 2010, and even up until not too long ago, Herblore was a pretty expensive skill to train.
Yeah. It still is expensive.
It's expensive, but at the higher levels, yeah. But that below post or pre-99 stuff isn't as bad as it used to be. Which is just absurd thinking about it from my perspective. But I mean, this is why it's always good to poke your head into the market and see where things are. And we'll talk about why some of that might be here to begin with. Tanis, any Herblore training on the books for you?
No, I'm 120, so I'm good. But I probably proteins are always something that, like, if you get them, like you collect them, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have anything else to do with them, so eventually, like, you use them on a double XP weekend.
Yeah.
And in that respect, it's fine. And when I think about, like, it's not the best XP in the game, that's true. But I can remember when overloads, I mean, even just a few years ago, were still very viable training method and very fast XP. I know I did my Herblore on a traditional double XP weekend, and think I'd gotten it done in over one of the days of it. So don't really think it's that drastic of a change.
Overloads are still a great choice, even though they're more expensive and a bit slower than something like vulnerability bombs, just because if you ever plan to PVM or even get like 200 mil Slayer, having a bunch of overloads made is super nice.
Yeah.
I've been 200 mil Herblore on my main for kind of a long time, at least 3 or 4 years by now, I think. But actually, that's not true. I've been 120 Herblore for a while. I got 200 mil Herblore with adrenaline renewals.
Oh, wow.
Right when they came out. At the time, they were called power bursts of adrenaline.
Right.
Or power bursts of something like
something.
That. I don't know.
Some sort of power burst. Yeah.
Power burst something, yeah. Anyways, that's how I got my 200 mil Herblore, because I already had a lifetime supply of overloads from getting 120, so I wanted a lifetime supply of adrenaline pots. But on my Iron Man, Herblore is really interesting to train from scratch, kind of using all new methods. It's definitely faster than it's ever been. It feels more accessible than it's ever been, and it's a lot less tedious to train now because you have so many options that are all valid for different reasons.
Yeah.
And
Herbie Werby.
Sure. Herbie Werby's great. But just the way that they've integrated ingredients from all over the game, I think, is super innovative and cool.
It's a good sync skill.
One of the potions I'm doing right now is the Power Burst of Opportunity, which you need that recipe for, and then it's Phasmatite ore, Third Age iron, dinosaur claws, and primal extract. It's such a weird collection.
But do you see yourself using those?
Not particularly.
It's complete loss.
Yeah,
Pretty
not
much.
really. But from an Iron Man perspective, they're amazing because they're extremely fast XP for resources that are incredibly easy to get. I mean, I don't think we need to get into why that's the case, other than just like the only thing I have to get is Phasmatite ore, which I have a lot of stone spirits from PVM. So it's the other three just
right.
The other three things I just naturally accumulate based on stuff I'm doing anyways.
Yeah.
So on an Iron Man, Power Bursts of Opportunity is a huge way to train. It used to be just Vuln Bombs, but Vuln Bombs require 3 soul runes each, and you can't exactly sacrifice that many soul runes these days. So,
and I think I know why. So with that, I mean, is I feel like the protein shake exists, and you can use it if you want to use it, but the last 5 minutes or so have just been effectively a PSA to say that, hey, there's better ways to train Herblore out there, and it's not too terribly expensive if you have these protein shakes. And you might want to consider just saving them or converting them into something else that's a little bit more useful for you, I think. So, what about the protein runes and the proteins? Do you think anybody will use those?
The runes are kind of amazing if you hate training rune crafting.
Yeah.
They're
who doesn't?
Yeah, they're much better XP. Well, okay, much better XP is a stretch, but they're noticeably better XP than rune crafting through the Abyss, or using rune crafting through the Soul Rune Altar. So if you do it at the Soul Rune Altar, it's about 100k XP an hour more than regular Soul Rune crafting is. The Abyss, same thing. It's like 120k more than regular Abyss if you just go to a Blood Altar.
And I don't have any of these, so I'm wondering, does the Abyss bonuses with the demonic skull and such apply to that? I wonder if you go through the Abyss.
Just the base. Okay. The base XP is just really high.
All right,
so it's like 500k XP an hour base. Yeah, and it doesn't apply. You can't get like 2 mil an hour if you go through the Abyss.
Got it.
You just like teleport to the room, teleport to the Blood Altar with a Wicked Hood or whatever, and just chill.
Yeah. That sounds really good.
I mean, they're definitely the best of the three by a lot. They're AFK, very fast rune crafting XP. Really good choice to use these on double XP weekend, especially if you have power ups. I would certainly convert either of the other two into these, unless you're super into Abyss rune crafting, which maybe you are. That's
for the money and such, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like 20, 25 mil an hour.
For waters.
Yeah. Or bloods. Bloods are also extremely high profit. I think most people would probably do bloods.
Yeah. What about the proteins?
Terrible. Funny name, but why would you use these? I think it's as good or worse than sailfish are, and that's a cheap AFK skill, so it doesn't make much sense to use these.
Fair enough.
Yeah, this is one of those I was saying, you just kind of acquire them, and then you can use them for free at some point.
Yeah, you could use them for free if you're 200 mil in your other skills for some reason. I would still say it's probably worth it, just convert them to the essence.
Yeah. And
that's what I would do.
And it's worth noting that these cannot be used, or these cannot be found from the protein packs. They can only be found on Treasure Hunter currently.
Yeah, and they also, other protein items can't convert into them. Is that correct?
I
think that's right.
Okay. It doesn't say that on the post, but if that's the case, then that's the case.
I will confirm that right now.
All right.
My bank.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I can confirm you can't. This is why I really don't like this, by the way. I don't really like that you're forced to buy keys if you want one of these proteins. I think that they should be on a universal system. This is they've never done this before. When they came out with protein cogs for invention and protein. What is it? Protein energy
Memories.
for divination.
Memories,
protein
yeah.
memories.
Yeah.
Those could both be found in crates, and you could also convert other stuff into them. I think it's just like kind of a gross money grab to just make these work on this separate scale. It's not like they're that overpowered or something. It's just like, I don't understand the motivation to make them work differently other than just profit, which I guess that's fine. That's what Treasure Hunter is here for, is to make sure the game profits.
Yeah, and
but it's unappealing to me personally.
And I'll just say with that, ever since they made the changes to the point where you don't get the protein packs anymore on Treasure Hunter, my bank has gotten significantly more messy getting those protein items. If anything, just having them in the packs was just nice to have them all confined in one item and not needing to worry about that until later. So,
and I don't know why they're so worried about people who have saved up proteins turning them into essence or potions. Like, who cares? I don't really get it. But
yeah,
whatever.
well, money today.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, money. That's the answer.
Yep. And with that, I'm going to pivot to the rest of the Ninja Strike from this week, because Tanis, we got a feature that was long requested by the players and was shown in the early betas of the bank rework, but it has now finally arrived. You can now check your metal bank from the main bank.
Oh.
And,
snap.
And along with this, you can now check your metal bank from any ore box, and you may not deposit items into the metal bank when opening via the ore box. So,
okay.
Obviously, you know, the one around the ore box is a nice little quality of life feature, but this one about being able to check and see your metal bank from your actual bank is something that we talked about when the bank rework was happening, and look, now we finally have it.
Yeah, no, that's great.
But the keyword is
like
check.
That.
The keyword is check. So obviously you can't deposit into it. You can just check it. But
yeah, I wish we could withdraw.
That'd be nice. That would be nice.
Can you explain something to me? Actually,
I'll try.
How do you withdraw a specific ore from your metal bank? Because I've never been able to figure it out, and I just have to withdraw all.
Right.
And then drop the ore that I'm.
There's right click the ore.
Yeah, I do that, but then nothing shows up. There's no menu when I write.
You have to do it from the you have to do it from the furnace part.
From the furnace part.
Yeah, not the forge or the anvil, but the part where you make the bars.
Yeah, the smelter.
Okay,
that's how you would draw
that makes
ore.
Sense. Like, why?
And then the bars are from either the anvil or the furnace.
I guess that thematically makes sense in terms of how smithing operates, I suppose. Okay, I guess that makes sense. Fair enough, I suppose. All right.
You can also
thank you for the explanation.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things that's hidden behind a right-click menu and is kind of difficult to talk about with the mining and smithing rework. But you can also now withdraw urns and effigies from the Brooch of the Gods if you've put them in. Previously, you'd just be able to put them in, and you couldn't get them out.
This is really good for two reasons. The first is as when you want a scrimshaw sometimes versus wanting your brooch at other times when training something. Like, I can think of divination. Like, if you're training divination for money, you want your scrimshaw, so then you want your urns in your inventory. Mm-hmm. But if you're like on your island, it doesn't matter, so you might want them all in your brooch.
Yeah,
and then the other is the wilderness. It's like if you're training hunter in the wilderness, you don't want your brooch with you. But if you're training hunter elsewhere, you do. So it's so convenient. I was really happy to see this.
Yeah. And just a daily reminder that I think it's level 82 at which the effigies become better XP than the urns, if I remember correctly. Our discussion on that. So, continuing on, popular hunter areas on Anachronia and the incandescent divination crater now forbid cannons and griefing the players while training the skills. About time.
Yeah. A little overdue.
I mean, you never want those chinchompas to blow up, right? when you're training with them. You never want that. So, that's good. Silverhawk boots can now store a larger quantity of feathers before you have to recharge them. 500 is the number now.
But it's 1,000.
Or sorry, 1,000. 500 is what it was.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what the funny part about this is that I didn't know the love of Silverhawk boots until I ran them on my alt.
Wow.
Yeah.
Welcome.
The best.
Yeah.
Like, why would you ever run a lap? Like, no.
My main has 122 mil agility XP, and I did about 25 mil agility XP at Virago.
Wow.
So, with Silverhawks, obviously. There's no other way to train it there.
Also, sorry, it's level 90, not 82. I don't know where 82 came from. It's level 90 at where the effigies are better than the urns. Fletching arrows, darts, and bolts now have a chance of giving you strange rocks. Okay. Amazing we went that long without that being added. The speed of creating armor spikes has been increased. And you can now make abyssal armor spikes in batches of 100 instead of 10.
This is also huge. Making spikes was absolutely obscene in terms of the amount of time you had to spend making them versus the amount of time you could spend PVMing.
Where are we at now with these? Are people still using the abyssal armor spikes if they're using melee?
Yeah, they definitely should be.
Okay.
Not for like Slayer, but if you're doing Carapac or something, definitely.
All right, good.
Yeah, 100%. Well, assuming you're using the mask. If you're not using the mask,
you obviously want to do that.
You're not getting. Yeah, you're still getting some use out of them, but not that much.
All right. Now, one that people have been waiting for a long time. Iron Men may now form Dungeoneering parties together.
About time. I don't know how they ever made it. But then again, I've talked to Iron Man that didn't seem to mind it, and I have never understood that.
Exactly.
Same. I did one... miserable. I did a lot of solo dungeoneering on my Iron Man. It is not fun. There's nothing about it that is fun or enjoyable.
Everyone in the party needs to be an Iron Man, Iron Woman, or hardcore Iron Man or Iron Woman. XP sharing can't be toggled on, and with this, as well, the Dungeoneering multiplier, which was based on difficulty, has been made more fair towards solo or small parties. I wanted to test this week, but after getting 120 last double XP, I think I'm done. Unless somebody really asks me nicely to go dungeoneering with them.
Yeah, that's the only way I would ever do it is if it was for a favor or like a party or something.
Yeah.
What about sinkholes?
I mean, sure.
Oh, I loved sinkholes, but I'm done. So
sure, but I mean, if I need tokens, I'd much rather just go farm the bosses in some of the elite dungeons, right? Like the mini bosses.
But you gotta get 5.6 bill, Shane. How are you going to get 5.6 bill if you stay at 120 DG your whole life?
The eyes are rolling back in my head right now, David. That's not happening.
We should get 5.6 at the exact same time, Shane.
No,
that'd be so fun. I'm at 3.5, almost 3.6 bill XP right now. So we could get it at the exact same time.
You're at 3.6, and for comparison's sakes, I'm at 1.4.
Well, you just gotta do some spins.
No.
You'll catch up.
Spin to win.
Yeah.
All right.
Spin 2 bill XP.
Oh, God. Moving on to farming. Increase the range at which you can interact with the player-owned farm paddocks, and you may now interact with the paddock gate instead of trying to click the small moving NPCs inside the paddock. Wonderful. Wonderful. That's going to help a lot.
I literally just clicked on. I refilled my chims from the bank. Literally, like just flipped the camera around and clicked on it and let me do it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Also, the teleport option on the tool leprechauns has been replaced with a note produce option. You can still teleport to Vinesweeper by talking to the leprechaun. And noted produce can also be now added to compost bins. 2 very good patch notes for farming with that one. There's one caveat with this, though, is that if you have saplings in your inventory and you choose the note produce option, you will also note those saplings. If you're on a farming run and you are doing safe papayas or something, and you want to just note the papayas that you got, and you right-click that note produce option, you're going to note the remaining saplings as well. Just an FYI on that. That seems like an oversight and should be something that should hopefully be fixed soon once they're aware of it. So, all right, Herblore. We talked about the protein shakes, of course, but extreme combat potions, in terms of the attack, strength, defense, magic, and ranged extreme potions, are now tradable, and there's a new GE set that includes all the ingredients for an overload potion. Yes, no, maybe
great.
so?
Well, I mean, you always could buy these. It's just that this was a aftermarket type deal, right? Like you could buy the sets. You could always buy these kinds of sets.
But they weren't tradable.
Well, yeah, I guess that. Well,
unless you mean you buy like the gear to make it and such, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really think that this is just a quality of life update.
It is.
It's been a long time. And there could be maybe there's a place for skillers to get a little bit. And PVMers may not have to spend so much time not PVMing. So, I don't see any problems with this whatsoever.
Yeah. So I spent about 45 minutes to an hour or so thinking about this, going back and forth on whether or not this was a good thing. Because you go back to when the extreme potions and overloads came out, those were initially promised and brought into game as a unique unlock, a unique reward, if you will, for achieving high level at the time in the Herblore skill, with the cherry on top being the overload at 96. And the idea behind this was that you, of course, would then alternatively be locked into things like supersets and such if you didn't have those. And the motivation to train to high level Herblore, which was expensive at the time, would have been to unlock these extreme potions and eventually overload. But as we all know, the skill went to 120. What was once high in the skill at 96 is now decidedly mid-level, considering the fact it goes to 120. If you're looking at it from that 120 perspective, and from that it makes sense, because at that point in time, you have to look at the grand chart of overloads and just how those all factor in to each other, and just the myriad of potions, the constituency potions that go into making an actual overload potion. And it's quite absurd looking at this entire chart. So just from that chart, and looking at the fact that, hey, this is, something that probably should have been done with 120, it's something I can get behind. But I've actually talked to people who feel that this is against what was initially the design of the Herblore skill around these overload potions and such back in the day.
I agree with that. It is against the original design. That's a fact. But it sometimes you could change 12-year-old designs, and that's okay.
Yeah.
No one's gonna get hurt.
And see,
it's gonna be all right.
Right. And so keep in mind, to get to that initial overload, you need the super attack potion, the strength, defense, magic, and ranged. You need the super of all those. And then with that, you're also talking about irrits, catentines, quorums, dwarfweeds, lantatimes, eye of newts, white berries, limpwort roots, wine is amarak? Yeah, wine is amarak. And the potato cactus. And with that, then you get your super potions, And then you add on Evanto, Lantadimi, Dwarf Weeds, those spiky things, and ground mud runes. And then you have your extreme potions, and then we can start talking Grandwall spikes, and then we could start talking about overloads at that point. And then when you sum all that up together, you see how much stuff goes into making just a single overload. Now you flip to the other side of it, and you start talking about elder overloads. You have all the other adrenaline potions, the prayer renewal potions, the super anti-fires, yada 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 down the list. You start to just see how darn complicated it is to get a Supreme Overload or an Elder Overload at the end of it. And that's why I think today, in 2022, this is probably a good change. But at the same side of it, we have to ask, at what point do we stop asking people to necessarily unlock things for the skill? And
I think the fact that every single potion that you would even consider using in an in-game situation from a stat boosting perspective is locked still.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you still need 90 Herblore to make the overloads, and that's with a +6 stat boost from Spicy Stews. So to produce overloads on a mass scale, which are a prerequisite to any high-level PVM or even doing mid-tier PVM with any degree of effectiveness, you definitely want at least base overloads, if not elder overloads. So all of the best rewards are still locked behind the skill,
and
including elder overloads,
and even more than just the skill. You have to start talking about quests to get the combination unlocks.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
So while there was that initial design to lock the extreme sets and the overloads behind the high level of Herblore, we now have the next generation of that, unlocked based on quests and high levels. So I don't really... And I wanted to try and find somebody who was available to articulate this point on the podcast. I wanted to find somebody who would articulate the other side of this. But for anybody who's a fan of, having unlockable skill rewards, we have those in Herblore with all the combination potions and more that feed into this whole overload flowchart that I got up on the screen right now. So because of that, I don't see this as a problem. I'd be interested to hear from anybody out there listening if you do have concerns with this patch note. So,
well, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said when it went to 120 and there's actual 120 content, then that does kind of change the game. And on top of that, I just have to ask the question: in a 20-year-old game, when is it okay to move on? At what point is it okay to change something, or can it never ever change? Because I feel like that's where we're at, right? It's either you can either change after, 12 years, or you don't ever want anything to change, ever.
And that's why for so long this podcast had the unofficial slogan, the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good example of that, right? Because even though this is a change...
You're right, it is, thinking about it.
Yeah, this is a perfect example of that. All of this stuff that was meant to be preserved with Overload is still preserved at the top end of the scale because it went to 120.
And adrenaline potions. Those are vital in any high-level PVM.
Yeah.
Adrenaline potions, super adrenaline potions, adrenaline renewals, all of those are locked behind the same levels. So it is literally a quality of life thing, because no one would go to a boss like Araxor, which at this point is probably upper mid or lower high, kind of the entry to high level PVM at this point. No one would go to Araxor as a learner without overloads. You just would not do that.
Yeah.
So at the very least, you need 90 Herblore with a +6 boost in order to go to Araxor, which, to me that seems fine. I don't think the difference between 90 and 92 is that enormous.
No, it's not. It's not. And I think the tacticality of this behind this Ninja Strike, bringing all this stuff in with right before the double XP weekend, is really smart and really genius. And you know what we always talked about, 10, is the ability for the team, the Jagex team, to build goodwill. I honestly think that this Ninja Strike is one of those golden opportunities. And it seems a little bit odd that they're not shouting out about it a little bit more, because this seems like one of the bigger ones, doesn't it?
It does, and I mean, and the timing is great. I mean, Herblore is a skill that you train on double XP, and if you're not doing the highest of the high-end, potions or, vulnerability, power burst, whatever the case is, I mean, this is still, overloads are still a viable option, especially like David said, you're going to need them for a base going forward, or you're going to need them just to have them because that's the level of PVM you're at.
Yeah.
And so I thought the timing of it was excellent.
Yeah, you're right. And with that, I feel like we have laid out the point for doing this, and I've tried to lay out the point of why people might not want this. But if you guys have anything to add on this, please do let us know, because this is the kind of thing that we like talking about, something that doesn't necessarily seem controversial to the vast majority of the community, but it's one of those things that people can get really passionate about. So let us know. All right. I want to thank some Patreon supporters before we continue with the patch notes this week, because without them, well, let's just say what I have just received possession of this week would not have been possible. I have possession of the $200 Patreon reward, and those will be going out into the mail early next week. I'm not going to say what they are. There's been only a few people who have seen these. The producers haven't even seen it yet. Believe it or not, I'm going to show them this weekend. And even then, that's going to be a limited sighting of whatever it is. But it looks wonderful, and we're so pleased with how it turns out. Hopefully, you guys enjoy it, and it's a big thank you to everybody, and it's a big thank you, like we do each and every week, to people like Amos Reed, Andrew C., Arounds, Arvids L., Big Huge Rant, Bryflex, Christian S., Chunk the Monk, Diana, Drama Free, Duramax, L.O. Matey, Flazaman, Free Milk, Jade Gizmo, Jason S., Jeebus, Jesse W., Ling01, Mohan V., Nate the Great, Nick G., OTR Gamer, Patty the Architect, Pernasius, Ricky A., Samuel F.L., Skiotan, Scott D.S., Seth W., Stabby, Tabby, Taylor B., The Naked Captain, Tom V., and Zant. Thank you, everybody, for your support. Like we mentioned, we wouldn't be here without all you guys. We, of course, do our monthly bonus show, the monthly bit. Polling is up for that currently. It looks, unless there's a last-minute influx of support, like another huge majority of you guys have chosen that our next monthly bit will be talking about how RNG works, and that's going to be a Sirion-produced episode. He's going to go into the math behind it and the different kinds of RNG you can use in game design, so that's what you guys voted for on that. And if you want to have access to that when it comes out in early June, all you have to do is sign up at patreon.com/RSBANDB. For as little as $1 a month, you'll gain access to that episode and the entire back catalog of monthly bits, including last month's head-exploding Legacy Combat Special, which David was a primary architect of. Still getting feedback on that one, believe it or not. It's amazing what that monthly bit did, so thank you for that one.
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear what the feedback is.
Yeah, it's been absolutely, people have been absolutely astounded that Legacy Combat can do what we laid it out to do, and people actually went out and tested it and were like, "Whoa, this is actually a little bit weird, but at the same time, it makes my gameplay easier." So we accomplished all that on that monthly bit, and that's precisely what the monthly bits do, and we always learn something about it, or, like in Tanis's case, sometimes you get your mind blown, right?
Yeah, I'm still shocked, and I will probably always be shocked. Yeah.
And that's for as little as $1 a month. We also have the VIP tier for $3 a month, where you get a special Discord rank, access to a chat channel, and access to high-quality stereo versions of the show, plus a mention of the podcast at the start of the month. And then for $5 a month, you'll receive a shout-out on the podcast each and every week, and you'll gain exclusive access to the outtakes that we use to make the clip show at the end of the year. And once again, thank you to everybody for making what we do here possible. By the time you're hearing this, we will have had the RSBANDB update roundtable on Saturday. If you're listening to this on Friday or early Saturday, we're slated to gather in the RSBANDB Discord at 8 p.m. game time on Saturday and just have a general catch-up about what we've been up to, what Double XP is looking like this time, and anything that's on your guys' mind. So Patreon members are invited to those. Just a fun little nice casual chat and get-together. But with that being said, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for making what we do here possible. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Other patch notes. The fletching and skilling update. The accidental fletching and skilling update's getting some patch notes this week again. Anachronia's Dinosaur Farm teleport scroll is no longer consumed if the teleport fails to being teleblocked, and such as is the case on an instance shard world. Imbuing Dine Arrows is now listed alongside the Tip Arrows table so players can switch between them from a portable Fletcher.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that wasn't working before, so the portable Fletcher has its benefits with this now. Now here's one that was missing for 2 weeks. The When Arrows Icy Precision buff now correctly produces plus 2% and 3% accuracy per stack of the buff for thresholds and ultimates, respectively, instead of just plus 2% or 3% in total, as it was doing.
Oh, well, good. I don't know if that makes them good, but it makes them work like they're supposed to.
This would have impacted a few bosses, right, David?
Yeah, definitely could.
Like the Nexus of the world and such, I assume.
Yeah, Virago.
Virago, okay, all right,
potentially.
Yeah.
And
on that same vein, amounts of anima earned from the following sources have been increased, including Carapac in both normal and hard mode, Zuck and his underlings in normal and hard mode, Croesus, the Archglacier in normal mode, the Nodon, the Siege Cannons, Glaciites, Glaciers, and the Zekar, as well as Centistan Graveyard Skilling, and Resonant Anima can also now be earned through hard mode Glacier streaks. Okay. So, apparently, some of the numbers we're looking at in terms of the skilling side on the Croesus front for Bic Anima, 6,000 plus anima per hour, potentially.
We shouldn't have too much of an anima problem then, right?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Did y'all see the price crash?
Yeah, it hit the floor. Somebody,
Bic Anima hit 1 GP.
Yeah, someone in the Discord said they weren't even able to sell their Bic Anima for 1 GP each.
Yeah, it's like I just bought one. It's 55 to instantly.
Okay, so it's gone up a bit.
We'll see what the Insta sell is.
Does anybody else get really interested?
It sells for 50 GP.
Okay. Does anyone else get really interested about the potential of Croesus skilling now? This Croesus front skilling areas now with this?
Well, what's changed about it?
They just buff the anima rates.
Oh, you mean like if you wanted to collect your own anima?
Yeah. If you wanted to, go train hunter or woodcutting, like it's not going to be the best rates.
I mean, it's still definitely good for AFK skilling that gives you a little bit of GP.
Yeah.
But I think it's less GP per hour from anima now than it used to be.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Because 50 GP each, even though you're getting 6,000 of it, is basically nothing. It's what, 30k an hour in anima. So anima used to be like over 1,000 each before the update. So
So where do we think this is going to fall? Because I think everybody still is hyper fixated on the big arrows and the Wen arrows for where they're used. The full arrows, of course, as is on tin. Which of these do you think is, with anima being readily available now with this, which of these do you think is going to be the one that people gravitate towards? Because I feel like this takes the question of having to spend an arm and a leg to use these arrows kind of out of the equation. Like, they're still going to be expensive, but anima is not going to be the kneecapping factor like it was previously.
Yeah. Depends how many people are doing arrow making, I guess.
Yeah.
That'll determine the price. But I guess it just sort of depends what the new bow is like. Because I think that at the use cases, the Bic arrows are really interesting and potentially very good. The other arrows are all good in their own ways, but I mean, we still live in a very dominant mage meta.
Has there been any further ideas behind where the Wen arrows land? I know when we first discussed them 2 weeks ago, it was mainly going to be higher end rages of the Glacior, Solak, maybe Ambassadors. There have been any grand realizations on that?
Other than those three, I don't think that there have been any new use cases discovered for it. As far as I know, the records at all those bosses are still FSOA teams.
Right.
So I think we're waiting on the new bow to see if these will make range competitive with Magic.
So then at that point, it's the age-old adage of kind of just stock up on the anima, I guess, whichever you think is going to be where it lands. So
yeah, I mean, I think Bic has a lot of potential, and Full has a lot of potential if everything in the Zami dungeon gets hit by them. If they work on everything in the Zami dungeon, including the bosses.
Yeah.
Then,
also the Jazz arrows for that Zamorak dungeon.
Yeah. Oh, is the Jazz arrows are the demon?
Yeah, they're the demon dragon ones.
Okay. Yeah. The Jazz one. That's what I mean. Not Full.
Right.
The Jazz one. If everything works, then potentially that could be really, really strong.
Yeah.
But yeah. So if the Zamorak boss drops something good enough, then people won't really care about burning tons of money getting faster kills, because the faster you get whatever the new item is, the more money you're going to get for it. So it'll be worth it.
Yeah. Okay, so not much has changed in the intervening 2 weeks, then I'm fine with that.
Yeah, nothing's changed.
The Fletch any type of arrows or arrow shaft daily challenge now counts when cutting Zygomites, and the light any logs or add them to a bonfire does not count when drying Zygomites, as they're incapable of, quote, making like a tree and getting out of here. Obviously, they're still working the puns into the patch notes a couple weeks after the fact. Crystal Knife, which is the 5% chance to double shafts when fletching, now applies and does not degrade when care styling Zygomites. And fletching animation override correctly the care styling animation when fletching, or otherwise holds a Crystal Knife if one is equipped. And change the token XP when feeding baby dinos from troughs back from farming to agility in response to further player feedback.
Wait, it says back from agility to
yeah. So on launch week it was farming, then the following week they changed it to agility, and now it's back to farming.
Yes.
Do you think we had a role in this, Tanis? Because we were kind of critical of that.
Well,
I mean, toot, right? I guess we can toot our own horns on that.
It was a little drop here or there. I don't think it mattered, but we said it felt like it should be farming.
Yeah. And I stand by that. We might have. Either that, or it's just what they call that, parallel thinking.
Yeah, great minds think alike.
Mm-hmm.
On mobile, added a line break to the Birth Orb tutorial pop-ups on the smithing interface as they were obscuring the item to select. For Elder God Wars related things, the placeholder marker has been removed from the player log for completing the Extinction quest, and looting the frozen chest now refers to the Archglacier in the adventurer's log. Then in other patch notes, fixed an issue that prevented login to a specific world if your previous login attempt occurred after a login queue, which sounds like there's some kind of weird thing going on the back end that even I don't understand, so I'll just say good to that one. Here's a good one. The player's pet will no longer become aggressive toward the player when fighting Aqua Knights.
What?
Huh.
Imagine taking a Ripper Demon familiar to Aqua Knights and having it become aggressive against you.
I didn't even know that was possible. Wow.
I didn't know either.
That's wild.
Now, my question, is there any pet out there that could kill a player easily?
I think you just mentioned it, right?
Not easily, but if you had scrolls in your Ripper Demon and you were just AFKing, then yeah, I'd probably kill you.
Which you would be, because you're at Aqua Knights.
But, and the same thing again, you wouldn't necessarily take a Ripper to Aqua Knight, but it's just something fun to think about. I mean, maybe there are people that would take a Ripper to Aqua Knight. I don't know.
I think if you're at a point where you're using a Ripper Demon for Slayer, you probably do not have Aqua Knights unlocked. You probably have them toggled off because it's not a very good task if you're
That's true.
Do you know why they're not a good task, Shane?
Why?
Tough to group up to Blood Barrage and
okay.
So, you know.
It always comes back to that now, doesn't it, when we talk about Slayer? That's just such a hilarious patch note. I'm just going to read it again before we pass it by. The player's pet will no longer become aggressive towards the player when fighting Aqua Knights.
I would like to see someone with a Lorehound at Aqua Knights get killed by their own Lorehound.
Well, the Lorehound doesn't attack, so...
I mean, apparently... yes, but this in this context, this is a bug that makes no sense. So why not have the Lorehound attack you with the power of 4K Telos? What do we know?
Oh God!
It increases damage for every piece of quest dialogue that you spacebarred over. I think that's how it should work.
We're having too much fun with this one, aren't we? Oh my God, all right. The Drake in Falador Park no longer consumes items other than breadcrumbs.
Didn't know it ate other things.
Yeah, neither did I. I'm wondering, could you, feed it a party hat or something with this, or?
I don't know. Maybe you could feed it a baby troll.
Aye. And of course, the reason you want to feed breadcrumbs to the Drake in Falador Park is that you can use that to form the Mega Duck.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, does Mega Duck start in Falador or Lumbridge? I forget. Did you guys do that ever?
I think it starts in Lumbridge.
Yeah. But you can definitely feed the one in Falador. No, you got to take it. Or no, it starts in Falador.
Okay.
You got to take it all the way to west of Uglag by the Warforge entrance. And you got to have enough people that you'll keep throwing breadcrumbs at it, because it'll keep following you only if you keep feeding it breadcrumbs. So, just a fun little hint. I think there's groups out there that do these Mega Duck hunts. It's a hilarious thing to do.
Yeah, and it's an IFB rec.
So. Oh, really?
Yeah, you gotta have all pets.
Wow. Okay.
Mega Ducklings is a boss pet, Shane.
I had no idea about that.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't like it, but whatever. It's funny. There should be some funny stuff.
The Dwarven Harvester now correctly doubles the yield of herbs when a herb bag is in the player's inventory. That wasn't working before. The Ophidian incubation spell now correctly turns raven eggs into Corax Trice eggs. And the title, All of a Flutter, no longer incorrectly appears as unlocked for all players. And there's your patch notes for the week, everyone.
Hey.
Happy Double XP Live. I realize it sounded very curmudgeon-y the way I said that, but I literally do mean that with these patch notes and Ninja Strikes. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm not. I have no idea what's happening this double XP for me. On either account, but more on that later. So, we talked about the Kickstarter for the RuneScape Kingdom Shadow of Elvard game that's launching on May 31st, and we learned about the various tiers of pledging that is now available via Steamforge's Kickstarter. And with this, if you want just the core board game and Kickstarter exclusive content, you're looking at £65 or $80 US, which is a $35 discount on the retail price. The core pledge will include the Kingdom Shadow of Elvard game and the Kickstarter exclusive Culinaromancer expansion, including the Culinaromancer mini and boss campaign and noob NPC mini. They say altogether this adds up to a 15-hour replayable campaign, plus 16 minis and over 400 cards. There'll also be some Kickstarter exclusive cards that were unlocked through backer votes on the Kickstarter. So this is the Kickstarter price, $80 for this game. 80 US. And that's a $35 discount on retail. So does that mean that this is going to be a $115 board game then? When this is all said and done? That's my question about this. I don't think I've ever bought a board game that was that expensive.
I don't know the board game market, but this is something that if it was a different price point, I would have gotten it just as a collector thing. Yeah. But at this price point, it's too high for me to just set on my shelf.
Yeah, I would need to see what the non-Kickstarter price would be if they go that route to a wider retail launch with this, because, I mean, I'm not a big board game person, but much like you, for a collector's item like this, that's a little bit steep for me. So, I guess this is reserved for the board game fans out there. Because there's also...
Yeah.
Go ahead, David.
Well, other game franchises have done stuff like this. Like, you could buy the Dark Souls board game, and it's about this price point. The really fancy games like your Scythes, Arkham Horror, newer versions of D&D, whatever. A lot of those games are in the $80 to $100 price range.
Okay, so that's kind of on par then.
Yeah, it's definitely about right in terms of the product it appears to be
aiming itself at. All right, all right.
Yeah, it's just some of those games are just made by people who have been designing board games of this kind forever, and everyone knows they're really good. So it's just tough. It's just tough ask, I feel like.
Yeah. There's also the gameplay all-in pledge. With this one, it's the core game plus all 4 expansions, each one themed around a different boss. This is a replayable 24-hour fantasy adventure, they say. And with this includes things like the KBD and Zuck minis, and additional NPC minis like the Wise Old Man. And this one starts at £122 or $150 US, which is a $70 discount on the exclusive retail price. Then there's the all-in pledge, which they say for the fashionscape inclined among you, The deluxe all-in pledge includes all gameplay and all deluxe upgrades. So as with all the regular components, you'll get a neoprene mat, 4 neoprene boss mats, wooden tokens, metal coins, and a set of special edition dice, all of which are Kickstarter exclusives. This is £158 or $195, which is an $80 discount on the retail price. So I think if you're into board games, that's the version you're going to buy. Just to, if you were the kind of person who collects everything RuneScape, so to speak. So, there's also exclusive content, including a chance to influence the board game. Steamforge are turning the Kickstarter campaign into an open-world adventure, and over the 10 days of the campaign, there will be a series of quests. Each day, people will vote on which path Steamforge should take, unlocking a brand new Kickstarter exclusive gameplay card in the process. Now with this, those exclusive cards will then be added to every core, gameplay, and deluxe package for free. And then the votes will decide which cards are added to the board game. So they're involving people who get involved with the Kickstarter in kind of just providing a little bit final slant on which way the game will go. And once again, they say for 1 to 5 players, and at the very end of it, 24 hours potential gameplay with this. So this isn't just one of those 1 hour and done board games. This is effectively like an entire campaign kind of thing. So I think we've learned way more about that as we have got more information on this. And with that, I have to say that it's probably not my kind of board game. So I probably won't be going down this path. I can imagine there are people in our community.
I'm with you, Shane. But if I was a board game player, like, it looks like it'd be cool.
Yeah.
It's just I'm just not really,
Yeah, exactly. So that runs until May 31st. You have until then to sign up on the Kickstarter. You can find a link to that linked on the official RuneScape homepage. May 31st is when that launches. All right. Not too much left for us to do here. I think at this point we want to go into the micro lesson from this week. So we're going to give that a run right now. A micro lesson is a short and to the point video that teaches you about a single concept. This time, one of our combat and PVM experts, Thaxi, who's a teacher on the Raid FC staff, is going to be teaching us about defensives and tanking in RuneScape.
This lesson will cover the important information about defensive abilities, including which you might want to use in solo content. Then we'll talk through a basic tanking rotation for group PVM. Before we start, a quick note on shields. Many defensives scale in power based on the level of your shield. For most of these defensives, we ought to be using the highest level of shield possible. For defensives that don't scale off shield level, we can use a defender to send out an extra 20 to 25% damage versus a standard shield. We'll start with Resonance. It heals you for 50 to 100% of an incoming damage hit, depending on the level of your shield. This can be a massive bump in sustain if it's time to absorb large hits from boss mechanics, and is the biggest reason I tell newer PVMers to bring a shield with them everywhere. If you can sacrifice some damage to use it, the Preparation ability shortens the cooldown of Resonance based on hits taken, and can be used during your other defensives to have Resonance available more often. Freedom and Anticipate both prevent us from being stunned or rooted in place for a short duration after they're activated. Anticipate has a shorter cooldown and a longer immunity period, while Freedom clears negative effects that have already been applied to us, like bleeds, stuns, or some boss mechanics. These are not normally used unless a specific mechanic requires them. Devotion temporarily increases our protection prayers to have 100% damage reduction while active. If we finish a target while Devotion is active, Devotion's duration will extend by 5 seconds, up to a maximum total duration of 20 seconds. Debilitate is an attack that will block half of the incoming damage from any target it hits. It can be used without a shield, but if cast while wielding a shield, its duration increases depending on the level of the shield. Debilitate can be risky against groups, since it only affects damage from a single target, or against foes with high armor values, as it will have no effect if the attack misses. Since they don't require a shield, both Devotion and Debilitate are great abilities for anywhere you take significant damage. Reflect reduces incoming damage by half, and returns half of the pre-mitigation damage to the attacker. It's powerful for its ability to reduce damage from crowds on a fairly low cooldown, but the requirement of wielding a shield for the duration makes it a more niche ability. Barricade is a simple and powerful ability. It blocks all incoming damage from all sources while active, at the cost of consuming an entire adrenaline bar, leaving us vulnerable after it ends if we can't build our adrenaline back in time. With that in mind, the duration of Barricade is incredibly important. Barricade gains duration based on shield level, as well as with the presence of the Turtling Invention perk and the Ranch Out of Time's Malatops perk. While the duration of our Barricade exceeds 10 seconds, we can use the Intercept spell to offer 10 seconds of complete immunity to any nearby player as well, making Barricade exceptionally useful in group PvM. Immortality is a somewhat niche alternative usually used when Barricade is on cooldown. In exchange for our full adrenaline bar, Immortality has a long duration of 30 seconds, during which we take 25% reduced damage. If we die while Immortality is active, it will heal us for 40% of our HP and revive us on the spot with our current adrenaline intact. Being revived by the ability will immediately end the damage reduction effect, so it's usually best to intentionally die near the end of the 30 seconds, just don't cut it too close. Now that we've covered abilities, let's talk through a basic tanking rotation that can be adapted for most endgame group content. This rotation will cover 2 to 3 minutes before looping back and repeating itself. Thresholds do most of the heavy lifting to keep us alive during a tanking rotation, and we use Resonance and our ultimates to recover while our thresholds are on cooldown. Resonance is your gap filler, and should be used between defensives anytime it's available. Just be careful to use it right before your defensives end. Activating it too late is one of the most common ways I see people die while tanking endgame content. If you don't get hit during Resonance, don't risk getting hit on the last tick. Get that next defensive up early and just eat back up. Finally, the big guys in our rotation are the ultimates. Be careful when using ultimates, as being on low adrenaline while tanking makes us extremely vulnerable. Try to build well above 50% adrenaline before your ultimate expires so you can get ready to get your next threshold active. This is definitely a basic example, and almost every boss will require some variation on this. For example, Reflect and Debilitate can be stacked together for more damage reduction if you know you'll have big incoming damage, then some time to recover. As always, these micro lessons are intentionally brief. If you have any questions about defensive abilities or any other aspect of defensive setups, put them in the comments below. If you liked the video, leave it a like, and if you want to see more like this, subscribe.
Tanis, any questions?
No, I mean, I thought it was pretty self-explanatory for a beginner.
Yeah, and
like
and
myself.
that's exactly what it is, a first foray into using defensive abilities, solo content. And now you might want to use them for group PvM. David, since you're here, anything you'd like to expand on with that, or that you'd like to add?
Defensives are super important. They become less important lately because of a weapon called the Fractured Staff of Armadil. But prior to that weapon, defenses were super important, and they still are for some places, like Farago Phase 5. You still use Barricade. It's an extremely important ability. Freedom is extremely important everywhere, so is Anticipate. Something that isn't in this video that it makes sense because it's a beginner video, but the way that defenses work, they allow you to fire off a lossless auto attack before you could fire a second ability. So if you use Freedom, for example, you can get a lossless auto attack off before you do your next ability. So you aren't always actually losing damage when doing defensives. You're obviously not getting as much damage.
Yeah, that's a big misconception that because you're using defensives, it's going to be a huge damage loss. So I appreciate you adding that in.
Yeah, so there are definitely some places where defensives are both necessary to survive. So, for example, Helos, bomb tanking Farago on Phase 5.
Right.
Tanking Yakamaru, tanking Beastmaster. Although, really, you don't really need defensives tanking Beastmaster these days because Crypt Bloom is just absurd. But, unless you have full Crypt Bloom, you probably do. And then Anticipate and Freedom are super important for a lot of places. Freedom is necessary for Yakamaru. Both of them are necessary at Araxor. They're sometimes needed at Rise of the Six. There's a lot of stuff. Provoke is another defensive ability that wasn't in here. It doesn't feel like a defensive, but it counts as one.
Yeah, that's why we didn't put it in, because we're mainly focused on the rotations and how to, keep yourself alive with that, not so much the tanking, and then you could just apply tanking. But
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, then natural instincts too, but I suppose same reasoning, right? It's just not really for a beginner type.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're going to be using provoke or natural instinct, you know where you're using those, and we don't need to tell you that. That goes against the whole purpose of the micro lessons, the basic introductory kind of audience for that.
I suppose divert would also then factor in under not really basics. Divert is also really, really strong. Really strong. 2 reallys is a little aggressive. It's not that strong. But it's very good.
Where would you send someone like Tanis if they wanted to practice defensives and get into using them?
Well, for Tanis, I think that the main thing is just accessibility of different bosses. So, like, a good place to learn Freedom and Anticipate is Araxor, but I don't know if Tanis you could do Araxor just because of the accessibility issues of Araxor.
Been there, tried that. Didn't work out too well.
Do you have an Araxor kill?
I have one, but no.
Okay. Got it. Well, yeah, regardless, if you are really new to PVM at a high level, but pretty confident at God Wars Dungeon 2, Araxor is a really good place to learn Freedom and Anticipate. If you want to learn how all the defensives work, then, Telos is your guy for sure. To some extent, hard mode Carapac also, I think, is a really good place to learn defensives.
Yeah, that would be Revenge. We didn't talk about that one either because that's a DPS boost, but hard mode Carapac would be used there as well. And phase 4 Carapac, you definitely are using defensives. So I would say hard mode Carapac or Telos would be really good options if you're a little more experienced. But if you are kind of just getting into high level PVM fresh, then I think Araxor is a pretty good place to get used to the fact that defensives are important to some high level PVM. It used to be important to pretty much all high level PVM, but as I alluded to, the Fractured Staff kind of has an issue where you get infinite blood autos, and so you just basically have infinite health when you're using that weapon, because every time you use the spec, all your autos heal you. So you're just healing. The Fractured Staff heals you for more damage than most bosses are capable of putting out. So even if you were trying to die, if you assuming your DPS is good, you won't be able to, because your staff will just keep healing you. It's like, I don't know, it's just a broken weapon, but whatever, it's fine. One place I like using the defensives as an example, namely the Resonance and Reflect and such, is Hellweir, using healing off the bleed attack and whatnot. People who will note the micro lesson, that's where the first half of the background came from. So Hellweir is an option for that too. And it's just a fun case study. Yeah.
It's good.
But of course, that leaves the whole Cryptlim discussion out of it as well, and Animate Dad. But once again, micro lesson, intentionally brief. So yeah, let us know what you think of these. But with that, I think we can move on to our picks of the week. Do you want to go first, or should I?
Up to you.
All right. I'll go first then, and I figure this is a good pick of the week to do at this point. This is the Corsair Scimitar Pro or Elite Mouse, depending on which version that you get. And there's a lot of people out there who are wondering just why you need 12 buttons on the side of a mouse. I will tell you that if you're playing something even like RuneScape or any other MMO, having quick fire buttons on your immediate access to your thumb helps a lot. It's what enabled me to do things in RS like prayer switching, gear switching, eating quickly, and so on and so forth. So I used to do a lot of PvP in Star Trek Online, and that's when I effectively sold myself on a mouse with multiple buttons on the side, a MOBA mouse or an MMO mouse, if you will. I used to use the Razer Naga, but they changed the design of it, and it wound up hurting my hand. But the Corsair Scimitar is, I feel, a very nice shape. It's got a decent software background behind it, and it works very well for RS in terms of the prayer switching and the quick eating and whatnot. And it's been my mouse now, I think, for probably about 4 or 5 years that I use whenever I'm doing anything intensive on RS or intensive in any game. So it's something that I use pretty much every day when I'm playing RS, and I know you use one as well, David.
Yeah, I love it. I use it for weapon switches and prayer switches. There are certainly a lot of other setups that you might want to go with, but I think that it is not a prerequisite for doing high-level PVM.
Absolutely
because probably one of the top 5 PVMers in the game uses a keyboard and trackpad and nothing else. So you can PVM with anything. You could watch him stream too. He has a hands cam where you can see him using a keyboard, trackpad, nothing else. But anyways, it certainly makes it way easier and more accessible if you have a really good mouse. And yeah, these have been really great for me.
Yeah, haven't you gone through more than one?
Yeah, I'm on my 3rd, but I've only paid for one of them.
There you go. Perfectly good warranty.
Because they come with a warranty. I actually own 2 now because I don't want to be without a mouse, because I also use it for work.
Okay.
Because my work, it's just really beneficial to have Excel hotkeys and Word hotkeys on my mouse. I'm dead serious. I use all 12 of the side buttons, and I have a separate profile where I have them hotkeyed for Excel for work, so I can make really fast spreadsheets.
And it's worth noting that the profile changes based on what app you're in. So if you tab over to RS, it'll have the RS profile, but if you're in Excel, it'll have the Excel profile.
Yeah, I like to think of it as magic, Shane. So that's, to me, it's like a magic wand that I can plug into my laptop. But yeah, so I have 2 of them now, just because I like being able to switch to the other one in case I have to send one in. But they're really good warranty wise. The customer service is honestly incredible. They're super nice about it.
Yeah, and you can change the color of the buttons and such. There's a number of other color indicators. That's what I use to know what profile I'm on. Each game has a certain color behind it, and that's how I know what profile I'm on for that.
Yeah.
So.
I used to be a Naga user, but I switched to this and like it a lot more. It fits my hand a lot better.
Yeah, that's exactly the same thing for me. Tannis, have you ever used a gaming mouse with multiple buttons like this?
I've got a 12-button mouse. It's a Logitech. I forget the number.
Okay.
I call it my bear paw because it's got 3 buttons across the top.
All right.
And then 12 buttons on the side.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty good size one.
Right. And I'm sure it's the same. Once you use one of these, people wonder, what are you going to use all the buttons for? But over time, you get used to it, and it's hard to kind of go without.
Yeah, I couldn't. At first, this mouse was kind of big, but I don't think I could go back to anything smaller at this point because it just fits my hand. It's really ergonomic, so yeah.
Yeah. Another good thing with these is that you can actually store the profiles on the mouse, so that if you change computer, you can just load that profile up, and you don't necessarily need to worry about bringing the software over with it, too. So there's that.
Nice.
There's that with it as well. It's actually got me thinking that when it's time for a new keyboard, I might go Corsair with that as well, because it just reduces the amount of software that you have to run on your computer. So But yeah, that's linked in the pick of the week section at update.rsbnb.com. David, what's your pick of the week?
Yeah, so my pick of the week is the new album by Kendrick Lamar. And it's called Mr. Moral and the Big Steps. It's a double album. It's his first album since Damn, which, of course, he won a Pulitzer Prize for. The album is really intense and gritty and weird in places. I definitely don't think it's his best album, but in a lot of ways, it's the most interesting one. And it's a strange album in some ways because a lot of it is kind of about how he no longer feels like his artistry has the potential to make the impact that he hoped that it would, and that he's kind of given up on trying to change the world. But at the same time, it feels like that's its own message in a way. And yeah, it's just really interesting. It's messy and all over the place. But that's kind of, if you're into Kendrick, that's part of why you're into Kendrick, is because of the grittiness. And so I think it's definitely my favorite project of his in a while.
I'd assume there's some kind of pandemic link because the first two tracks are United in Grief and N95.
Yeah, certainly part of the album is about the pandemic. I think every artist who's putting out an album lately has some references to the pandemic because, I mean, what else are you going to write about? And to some extent there's that, but there's a lot of the themes that he often touches on. And a big theme of the album to me is just that sometimes you set out to make really big things happen and change the world, and it doesn't work out that way, and that's all right. It's there's still a lot of worthwhile, a lot of good things about your life, even if you don't end up accomplishing the goals at the level that you set out to. That work in progress is still meaningful, even if it is tiny in the grand scheme of things, and that resonates with me a lot, especially given that I'm a teacher, and while I'd like to make big changes to the world, ultimately the trajectory of my life will end up being relatively meaningless in the grand scheme of things, but that doesn't mean that small significance isn't super important and valuable and worth continuing.
Okay, good. You rescued that. I was getting concerned there, because I think we all have that ability to make that kind of impact like that. So I'm glad you rescued that. And I mean, I guess this is what everybody takes from the artists they listen to and such, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that, yeah, it's a really intense project, and I don't know. I think it's worth trying out. You definitely won't like every song on the album, but I think that's part of the point. So I like it. It's really cool.
Sounds good. We're going to move on to achievements right now. Starting off, we had Battle/X with 99 Constitution on the 17th, and Lore Deluxe with 120 Archaeology on the 17th.
Nice. And then moving on, we have Desmos 360 with 120 Archaeology on the 16th, and Suck XP Waste with 120 Hunter on the 16th.
Nicely done.
All right, we've got Guile Fleur with 120 Archaeology on May 14th. She with 120 Fire Making on May 13th, and Deniz with the 120 Fire Making on May 12th.
Lots of fire makings coming in after the accidental update, and of course this is the calm before the storm, as double XP is right around the corner right now, so that we're just taking a nice breather before that happens next week. We'll make sure we have lots of people on to read the achievements next week. And speaking of being on the show, from 2 weeks at the time of recording, so the first week of June, we're running something called an open panel. We haven't done this since, I think, 2015 was the last time we did this. So if any of you listening want to be on RSBANDB Update, here's your chance. Tell us why you want to be on the show. Include your name, whether or not you're a Patreon supporter, and your Discord handle, and we will get in contact with you and pick somebody to be on the show for the episode 2 weeks from now, which it looks like that'll probably be, based on the way the calendar falls, June 2nd. We're just opening this up. It's been a while since we've done this, and we invite anybody and everybody who's interested to fill this out. Tell us why you want to be on RSBANDB Update. We'll pick an answer that's interesting. There's no guarantees as to what will be interesting. It might just come down to what we get in the entire pool. If someone tells us a really funny joke, they might be on. If someone tells us a very funny achievement, they might get on. But we're opening this up to everybody, whether you're a regular listener or a Patreon supporter. Just fill out the form and you'll be we'll get in contact with you. We do ask that you have Discord. We do ask, of course, that you have a microphone and headset. Those are the three main requirements, because that's how we record the show. But I'm looking forward to seeing which of you guys out there in the audience decide that you want to be on the podcast. And if you do, we'll welcome you aboard 2 weeks from now from the time you're hearing this. So with that, what have we been up to? What have you been doing, Tanis, on RS?
I've been doing a little bit of farming, actually, and traded in my beans to get some growth potions, get ready for DXP. Still doing smithing, still just, cruising away. That's kind of my idle skill to work on. Playing a lot of mobile. And yeah, I mean, that's been pretty much it, but I've got my farms going. Still collecting Anachronia resources to finish off the ranch, but for the most part, just kind of chilling, doing a little smithing, doing some farming, and that's been about it.
All right. How about you, David?
I am doing basically two things along with dailies. The first is trying to get 120 Herblore on my Iron Man, which I'm slowly working towards. I'm almost 118, so getting there, kind of. And then I'm also working on getting a fraction staff of Armadillo on my Iron Man, because at this point it's just necessary for everything I want to do to be able to do it efficiently. And yesterday I got my first of the 3 pieces I need.
Nice.
So I was pretty happy to see that.
How many kills were you in for that?
69 exactly.
Wait, you're pulling the leg.
No, I can send you a screenshot right now.
Oh no, you did post it. You posted it. I see.
I posted a screenshot. Yeah.
Well, if that's not the simulation winking at us, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I'm just worried that piece number 2 will come at 420 and piece number 3 will come at 1337. I'm just going to be here forever.
Let's hope not.
But maybe I'll just get pieces in multiples of 69. So the next one would be 138. And then the one after that, I don't know. I can't do math. Like
207
something. Yeah, I would take that. That'd be fine. But yeah, so I got the shaft. At 69 KC.
All right, sounds good.
What do you think of that, Tanis? Would you take a shaft at 69 kills?
Well, I mean, I guess either way it would work. So yeah, I guess so. Well, I was gonna say it depends.
It's like a 1.6 bill drop. I guess the real question is: would you take a shaft at 69 kill count for 1.6 bill?
I would.
See, maybe in American dollars. I don't know about you.
Yes, I'm pretty thrilled. I've started getting a little better at it. I feel like I'm still pretty bad at hard mode Carapac. My kill times are not anywhere near where I want them to be. But at the same time, it's this weird content where I'm basically just, it requires some engagement, but not enough where I really have to think about anything. So I'm just like sitting here in a daze, hitting buttons without thinking about them.
And another thing I found with it, there's a huge step up from phase 1, 2, 3 into 4.
Yeah, so that's true to an extent, but part of that is that just because of the nature of it, you don't get that much practice on phase 4.
Yeah.
Once you figure out how phase 4 works, I would say it's the easiest of the phases. The only time I die is 3 to lightning if I'm just not really paying attention.
Yeah.
But so I used to die a bunch on phase 4, but once you figure out phase 4, it's really, really easy. It's like, it feels impossible to die. And you're just like, oh, wow, how did I ever die to this? It's one of those things.
Next time there's a free death week, that's something I want to perfect. Last free death week was the one where I got the first kill on it and was able to do it in Animate Dead gear, but I want to get to a point where I'm doing it with power armor and speeding the kills up.
Yeah, we'll definitely just bring Animate Dead gear for phase 4 and just use power armor.
And see that's the thing. I was doing it with ranged all the way through. So.
Oh, you did it. You did it in ranged.
I was first trying to do it in ranged, and then I just switched to basic magic, and then Animate Dead at the entire thing, and then that's how I wound up getting the kill. I think it was a fairly high kill time. I don't exactly remember what it was offhand.
Yeah, I'm like kind of struggling to get it much past like the 450 to 500 range.
Yeah, I was nowhere near that, and of course that's why it needs to be iterated on. Next free death week, and you know, with that same thing, it's like, should I be using range for this? Should I be using magic? Because we obviously have the Animate Dead.
Magic. Animate Dead is crazy. Why would you not use? Why would you not use it? It's a cheat code.
Yeah.
Unless you feel like it's less of an accomplishment or something, then I guess use range.
Yeah,
but I feel like the only reason to use range, except for mechs, exactly, is if you are on a self-restricted account, like Thaxie's bow only account. But unless you like want to play the game on hard mode, just like use magic.
And see, that's the thing. I've always myself been a fan of using ranged as the combat type, even back in the day, and that's what I chose on when I first started looking into doing PVM. I said, "Oh, we're going to do ranged." And that's where I was, and then I
I'm
went
with you, but getting hit 500s is better.
It's
than
not fun.
Hit 5,000.
Exactly.
I mean, it's the difference is just like cartoonish at this point.
Maybe I need
in terms of learning content.
Maybe I need to invest into a magic set.
Yeah. I mean, maybe ranged will get its Animate Dead equivalent.
I don't think so.
If you're learning a boss like hard mode Carapac, the problem with phase 4 is just panicking and that causes you to die.
Yep.
But if you Animate Dead, especially if you have Cryptblend, then it's even more wild. But Animate Dead will just keep you alive as you make mistakes. Whereas if you make a mistake with range, you just get popped for like an 8K. You're just dead.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so I would, if you want to learn hard mode Carapac, I would strongly recommend using magic. It'll be so much easier.
All right. Since double XP is right around the corner, I forgot to ask you, Tanis, what are you planning for double XP, if anything?
I'm gonna grow some golden dragon fruit, I think, and I might do some smithing for myself.
Ooh, okay. How about you, David? Herblore? Or no, that's an Iron Man. You can't.
No, I'll play my main on double XP. I'll probably get 200 mil smithing. I'm at 152 mil right now. And then maybe either work on 120 crafting or 200 mil fletching, or just finish 200 mil wood cutting off. I could do that.
Okay.
I'm at 180 mil wood cutting at the moment, so I could probably actually finish that.
Yeah.
Just feels like a waste to do wood cutting on double XP.
Right,
and so silly.
And that's one of the 120s I want to push for, and beyond that, I'm not sure what to do on the main. On the alt, I'll probably...
You could do 200 mil Slayer, Shane.
Please.
There you go.
No, God, no. What? Go sit in Camp Slayer in Legacy mode for double XP?
Well, yeah, apparently that's how you do it.
No,
get like 2 mil. You'll get like 2 mil Slayer XP an hour.
I don't know. I think on the alt, I'm going to push for some more divination training. Try and level everything up, maybe to 60, 70-ish. We'll see. We'll see where everything falls and what I feel like doing with that. But there's nothing planned currently. No buyable spot this time, though there probably should have been. But we'll check in where we're at next week and where we're at on the round table this coming weekend. But I believe that is it for this episode of Update. If you guys want to check us out and have the podcast automatically delivered to you, you can subscribe on any podcast listener out there. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Pocket Casts, Amazon, and more. And of course, we're also on YouTube at youtube.com/RSBANDB. That's where we post the nibbles, the micro lessons, and more. And of course, if you found this podcast useful, or you like the micro lesson or any of the other nibbles we put out, do give us a like and subscribe. It greatly helps the channel out. So with that being said, we'll be back next week for another episode of RSBANDB Update. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you then. Take care.
See ya.